And these are familiar names to those of you who've been at Westmont for a long time, and perhaps not so familiar to others of you, and yet these are our forefathers and our foremothers in the faith here, and they deserve to be remembered well. In sociology, Dwight Small and Brendan Furnish. In economics and business, Lou Kuipers, Roy Millender, Ira Rapson. In political science, Dave Lawrence, Bruce McEwen, Emma Neon-Hahn, and Norma Neon-Hahn. In education, Harold Miller, Russ Carr, Sally Webb. At the urban program, Steve Schultz and Rusty Springer. In kinesiology and physical education, Jesse Rogers, Crystal Jordan, Chet Kammerer, Peg Lovick, Ron Mulder. And in history, Peyton Yoder, Frank Hieronymus, Lewis Robinson, Paul Wilt, and Shirley Mullen. Please join me in expressing our thanks to these very faithful teachers and scholars whose great work we've inherited and continue to build on. They are our foundation, and we are indeed grateful to them. Earlier this semester, in this same room, in January, Dr. Judy Larson had an opportunity to give a similar talk on her installation day, in that case, into the new Askew Chair in Art. And she presented a very wonderful vision of what the visual arts may look like, and all the arts at Westmont in the years to come, thanks to the new Adams Center that's being built just up the way here. In that case, she was able to look to the future and to give us a grand vision of what might be. My remarks this afternoon head in the other direction, that is backwards rather than forwards. That's true for a couple of reasons. On the one hand, it's because we social scientists are going to stay put in Dean Hall, as far as I know, and in Porter Center, and in Murchison. So there's no new building to look forward to, but we kind of like our old buildings. Of course, the larger reason is that as a historian, I'm much more comfortable looking backwards than I am forward. And I've joked with some of you that the last few months make it very clear that retirement won't be happening in this lifetime. So this is sort of a retirement talk. I may not get to give it otherwise. It's a look back at looking backwards. And so to that end, then, the weight of history, reflections from a life in the past. About 5 weeks ago, on January 28th, 2009, the Consultative Group on the Past issued its much-anticipated report. Established in 2007 by the British government's representative in Northern Ireland, this body's stated purpose was to assess how the people of that still divided society might more effectively interact with what has transpired there over the last 40 years, so that they might live more peaceably and stably together in the years ahead. Or in the words of its co-chairs, quote, to find a way forward out of the shadows of the past. The report's 192 pages make clear that although much progress has occurred, many shadows continue to hang low over life in Northern Ireland. For still too many people there, history remains either a dark place from which to escape or a blunt instrument to bludgeon the other side for its sins. How will Unionists and Nationalists, Republicans and Loyalists find their way through the past to some common or shared understanding of what has come before, and in that way move out of the shadowlands of their history into some brighter future? And when will they be ready to do that? The answer is not yet, when it comes to the consultative group's desire for there to be a shared memorial where all the citizens of the nation could jointly remember their conflict. They admit that it's simply too contentious an idea for the moment. More time, more history will need to pass before the nation can bear the weight of acknowledging the most elemental truth about its troubles. Both sides were responsible. Both sides suffered. Meanwhile, individual families such as that of Martin Mallon wonder when, if ever, they will know the truth about the particular events of the troubles that touch them most directly. In the Mallons' case, who was it that killed their 76-year-old Aunt Roseanne in cold blood while she sat peacefully watching television in her rural cottage in 1994? Will those responsible ever be held accountable? Martin and others in her family are tired of waiting for justice to roll down, tired of asking how long will it take for the truth to be told. And so the not yets and the how longs sound back and forth across Ulster's landscape. A past that weighs heavy upon the Northern Irish calls forward cries for both more waiting and less waiting. In that, the Northern Irish are hardly alone. Facing the past, as we just heard, is often hard work, painful work, if we're going to do it honestly and openly. And timing is many times the key. Finding that right moment, that right year, that right decade, maybe even that right century, to lay bare a fuller account of what's come before is tough business when we know that such knowledge may very well shake the foundations of what we've believed about ourselves and about others. And so telling the truth about the past, or at least more of the truth, is almost always a waiting game. Sometimes we wait for courage. Sometimes we wait for emotional distance. Sometimes we wait for wisdom or for inspiration. Sometimes we wait too long, and it becomes harder, not easier, to confront all of what has happened before us or what has preceded us. Just ask Jews and Arabs, or Armenians and Turks, or Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks. Nobody knows or should know more about the weight of history than the historian herself. Historians, through practice, if not intuitively, soon figure out that waiting is intrinsic to their craft. How and why that's the case is part of what I want to explore this afternoon. For myself, I'm not sure how long it was that I had to wait before discovering that choosing to spend my life in the past would require of me a lot of waiting, or that it would place upon me a much heavier weight than I ever anticipated bearing as a result of that choice. Or from that matter, that this waiting and this weight are often inextricably bound together when we confront the past. Perhaps it began in graduate school while I was reading C. Vann Woodward's The Burden of Southern History, a still compelling analysis of the ways in which the American South's distinctive past has weighed upon Southern identity. Or maybe it goes back further to the college and high school history classes where I first encountered the notion of historical perspective. There's even a chance that it goes back still further to my childhood and the memorable family vacations we took to a host of historic spots along the East Coast. Then it was that I first experienced the thrill of historical discovery, I might add at the feet of my brother, amid following Indian trails in the Smoky Mountains and climbing on the cannons at Gettysburg. Those were moments of pure delight, but they came, I'm afraid, only what seemed to be endlessly long months of anxious anticipation and waiting through a seemingly endless school year for summer vacation to come. I think my school years were longer than anyone's in history. And they were followed, of course, by more waiting during the next school year as I eagerly looked forward to summer adventures resuming. Whenever it began, this link between history and the act of waiting has come over the years to strike me as one of the main ways in which my life in the past, which is to say my study of and absorption with the past, has pushed my intellect and my character in particular directions. And it's that process that I also want to reflect on this afternoon. In essence, I want to pose the question, what has history done to me? It was interesting, I think Mary Ann used those very words in some of her comments. Or perhaps I should put it, what has history tried to do to me? Because however powerful it is, it's not all powerful, and we can certainly resist it, however much at our own peril. Now, to suggest that doing history and waiting naturally go together probably doesn't strike you as odd. After all, who more than the historian is at the ready to say, let's wait and see,